Good afternoon, everybody. Let's get into it. We're back again. This is another week of these webinars. I guess I'll keep doing these as long as y'all keep showing up. This week we're talking about how to close deals before year end. Very timely. I feel like every conversation I've had last week and this week is the frenzy of close of the year, close of the quarter, close of the month. It doesn't matter if it's high velocity SMB sales or enterprise sales. Everybody who has a fiscal year end coming up at the end of December, or even if they don't have a fiscal year coming up at the end of December, they use the end of the year as a catalyst to try to get deals in. And Christmas is next week, New Year's is the week after that. So at least in America, um, things are starting to slow down. You're probably hearing in your own email and in your own conversations, you're hearing people, oh, follow up with me after the new year, which is always like a dagger through the heart for founders and sales leaders and salespeople. And so I'm going to share with you some of the things that you can do in pipeline to at least gain certainty around which deals will close and kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, which deals are real and have a possibility and which ones don't. The goal here is over the next 30 minutes or so to teach you how to drive urgency and close deals with certainty. And most importantly, don't be disillusioned by deals that are not going to close. I joke, don't get high on hopium. Hope is not a strategy. It's so much better to be direct and communicate clearly with your champion to know whether or not the deal is going to happen. So that's what we're gonna get into. And then, like always, stay till the end. I have the full playbook that we use to scale Levelset through 20 million in ARR. I coach on it all the time. I want you to have it for free, and I'll share the link at the end. So here's where we're at. There are 8 selling days left in the month or left in the year. Realistically, there are 8 selling days. I'm going to say that today's pretty much over, even though it's not. If you're on the West Coast, you have a lot of daylight left. But we have tomorrow through the end of the week. We have basically 3 days next week in America. The Wednesday and Thursday, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, going to be really tough to get people to schedule meetings with you. And then we have Monday and Tuesday the following week, New Year's Eve. Again, sometimes you can get people to agree. I've definitely closed deals on the last day of the month. Or the last day of the year, even late into New Year's Eve, but I don't recommend it. It's much better to have a plan to close them before then. But that's it. We have 8 selling days left. And so today is when you create your plan for how you're going to close the deals that have the likelihood to close. And then the ones that are going to push, let them push, right? But we're going to fight to see if they can pull into this year. And that's what today is about. We're not going to go through all of these, but I just want to remind you so much of what I'm going to talk about today is based in this 4 keys to unlock a deal playbook that we use. I encourage you to adopt it. And there's 4 parts to this. Number 1, you have to have a champion. If you were on the call last week, we talked about how to coach your champion. So we won't spend a lot of time on that. But the other 3 things, we have to have a clear next step on the calendar. By the way, if you want to know in your pipeline, your team's pipeline, if you just want to know which deals are real and which ones aren't, assuming the pipeline is actually up to date, the first thing to do is just look at which opportunities or deals have a clear next step that's on the calendar. If they don't have a clear next step, a meeting on the calendar to talk about moving forward or not moving forward, then it's unlikely that you're moving toward a yes or a no or any type of decision. And so I have, one of the general principles in sales is that usually the velocity of communication picks up as you get closer to the decision. And if you're not seeing a velocity of emails and phone calls, if there's no next steps on the calendar, the deal is at risk. And so if you do nothing else, you should go and pull up your pipeline and just go through and see which deals don't have a next step. And if they have a close date in December, pick up the phone, call the prospective customer and get a next meeting on the calendar. And if you need a reason to meet, you can always use that executive summary as a way to align with the champion and begin to drive urgency. It's a great platform to use to drive urgency around the partnership. So set clear next steps. You need a closing plan. You might call this a mutual action plan or a joint execution plan, but you basically need a plan that lays out in black and white what the steps are, all the approvals, economic approval, legal approval, et cetera, in order to get to a decision, especially if that decision's a yes. You need that laid out. If you don't have it, you need to do that. And then finally, compelling event. That's really what we're going to talk about today is compelling events. You could also call them a time-based incentive. Most people use a discount or they waive onboarding or this we're talking about SaaS deals or even AI. You have to have some sort of economic incentive that's tied to a date. That's what we're going to spend most of our time talking about today. So here's the pipeline checklist. Like I said, after this call, my most useful advice is to go into pipeline, go deal by deal, and confirm these four things. Do I have a champion, a confirmed champion that they're going to recommend that the company buy my product? Is there a clear next step? Do we have a closing plan that's laid out? Can I see it in an email or can I see it as an attachment to an email where I can read where the champion agrees with us on the exactly how we're going to move toward a decision? And then finally, do we have a compelling event? So there's no way around this. You have to go to, oh, you appreciate Nano Banana. I don't know if you've used that in Google Drive. It's actually great. You click a button and then it does this visual. I think I might continue to use this. I know it doesn't follow the brand. This is totally off topic, but anyway, you'll see a couple of these slides. But you have to go deal by deal through the pipeline to see where the real opportunities are. There's no substitute for this. You have to go into each opportunity, look at the correspondence, look at the notes, and really look at the details to see, is this deal moving toward a decision or is it not? There's no shortcut. You have to do that work. And you can use these four things as a checklist whenever you're going through that pipeline. Bring your reps into it, bring your sales managers into it. Really important to get granular and don't assume anything. You have to create your own independent point of view about each deal in the pipeline. The other thing I'll mention, and we're not going to go deep on either of these two things, but it is impossible to drive urgency without a confirmed champion or a closing plan. I am not a magician. I don't have magic words. I cannot tell you how to take a dead or early stage pipeline and magically create deals that are going to happen before the end of the year. That's not what this is about. This is about those deals where you have confirmed a champion and you have a closing plan, which, by the way, you can go do those things today in the deals. If you confirm a champion and you confirm the closing plan and the steps to get to a decision, then you can use the compelling event that we're going to talk about today. But you can't really drive urgency without really having a champion or having that closing plan. So, caveat, it is impossible to drive urgency without these two things. Now, this is what we're focusing on today. Do we have a compelling event? What is a compelling event? So, real quick way to think about a compelling event, and I'm not going to read all of these words, but it has an economic owner, it has a defined date, and it's a direct response to a business pressure. On the right-hand side, this is pulled directly from the playbook. On the right-hand side, it tells you how to roll them out. We're going to go into more detail here. But this is basically the way to think about a compelling event is we've said we're going to close on a specific date. We've assigned a date that the agreement or the proposed price is going to expire. And then we've also offered some sort of additional incentive to execute the agreement on the date that we said that we were going to execute it. And these are the three most common challenges that I come across whenever I'm doing, running my own pipeline or coaching a salesperson or a sales leader or a founder on their own pipeline. There's three common challenges. The one is we mistake what is a real compelling event. The second thing is we roll out a compelling event before we've confirmed our champion, which is like the worst thing that you can do because it just smells desperate and you never, ever, ever want to offer a discount in the hopes that they bite on that because, well, we'll talk about that in a bit. And then the last thing is we mistake what is not a real compelling event. We get happy ears, right? And we hear things that are buying triggers, but they are not compelling events. And we can't really hang our hat on things like we want to make a decision by the end of the year. I mean, I believe you, but without a real economic incentive, then I've just seen too many deals slip because we don't really have a compelling event. So to reiterate, these are the elements of a compelling event. It has an economic owner, which means someone is going to have a benefit of the economic savings that you're offering. The second thing is it has a defined date that it expires. The third thing, it's related to a business pressure. Usually this is the value of your product, right? You have to have a compelling reason for why they want to buy the product in the first place. But it is related to a business pressure. So if they don't, the consequence of inaction, we talk about that often, especially as you're putting an executive summary together or you're walking through the evaluation stage in your pipeline. you have to understand the consequences of inaction and you have to be able to apply that to business pressure. Um, it has to deliver a business result, in line with the same idea. And then it defines the compelling event defines the reason for the economic owner to take action. Okay. Those are the elements of a compelling event. Whenever you roll out a compelling event, and I'll have some sample language here coming up. It's really important to confirm it in writing by email after you create the compelling event. And so, a simple example would be if you think about the timeline of a deal, we confirm the champion, and it sounds like, hey, look, based on everything we've talked about so far in our conversations, it seems like this is a great fit. Based on what you've seen so far, are you ready to recommend that your company buy our product today? And they're going to probably say no, and you can overcome the objections. But whenever they say yes, I am ready to recommend. That's the moment that we create that closing plan. And we walk through step by step. What are the who else needs to be involved? What are the meetings? What are the approvals that need to happen? Legal approval, economic approval, technical approval, security clearance, whatever it is that's part of their buying process. We want to understand exactly when those meetings are going to take place. I'll give you a quick example. I was having a conversation yesterday with a founder that I'm helping out, and there's a enterprise deal that they're working through, and we have a strong champion. The champion wants to get the deal done before the end of the year, but the champion came back to us and found out that they have to go through technical approval, and the technical evaluator, who is their, I think it's either an IT or it's not the CIO, but in that department, that person is out for the last 2 weeks of the year. So basically, if they don't get that technical approval before Friday, there's no version of the deal getting done. And we wouldn't have known that had we not asked the champion to spell out exactly what approvals need to take place. So it's important to be diligent and ask the hard questions to understand who needs buy-in in order for us to get to a decision so we can get a signature. So we confirm the champion, we create the closing plan, we confirm the closing date. Right? In that plan, we have a day that we estimate the agreement is going to be signed, and we put that meeting on the calendar and we invite our champion, right? And then once you have that date, that closing date, then you offer the time-based incentive, the compelling event. That's what I mean when I say compelling event. Only after we have a champion, we have a closing plan, and we've confirmed the date that we expect them to close, we offer the time-based incentive, we memorialize it, right? And then we have the closing call where really the closing call is like a confirmation call. It's not like you're going to watch them sign the agreement on the closing call, but you understand. Anyway, this is kind of the order of operations of how you would roll out a compelling event. Okay, so how do you specifically do it? Let me give you some language. This is what I would say. You don't have to use exactly these words. I've done this a bunch of times. These words work. So you're welcome to copy them verbatim. This is what I'd say. Hey, look, we don't sell our solution based on price, but we're excited to invest in our partnership by way of waiving $2,000 off our implementation fee. Only thing that we ask is that you sign our agreement on December 23rd, like we agreed. The reason we use these words in this order is because we position this discount on the implementation fee as an investment in the partnership. Now, why do we do that? It's important to acknowledge that your company has resources that you're reserving to onboard this customer and implement your product with this customer. If you look at the first year life cycle, you're kind of upside down economically on this customer until they're onboarded enough to the races, right? So all of your costs are front loaded. More importantly, it's the end of the month, end of the year. Lots of other companies are signing up to buy your product. And so it's important to acknowledge with your prospect, hey, look, we just want to align our resources with your intention to move forward. If you decide that you don't want to move forward, that's okay. We want to know that too, but we don't want this decision process to prolong. We just want to know, are you moving forward or not? And we're willing to pay for certainty. We're willing to invest in this partnership if you commit to signing on the date that you decided or that we agreed that you're going to sign on. And why is that important? Because when we know that you sign on December 23rd, then we can get all our ducks in a row to make sure that you're implemented and that you have a successful onboarding and that you can get all of the value that you are looking to get from our product, right? So super important to position it this way, right? To recap, we always communicate the economic incentive in terms of dollars, not percentages. This is important. So you see, I put $2,000 instead of like, 50% off or 20% off of the onboarding fee. This is this concept called enumeration. People just don't understand percentages. I don't understand percentages. Most people don't. Like, I don't know how to spend 20% or 50%. But if you tell me $2,000, I know what the last thing I spent $2,000 on personally. I also know the last thing the company spent $2,000 on, and I think it's critical that you highlight the economic incentive in terms of dollars. The next thing is you make it clear that the proposed price has an expiration date, right? Just look at the language. Only thing that we ask is you sign on December 23rd, like we agreed. It has to have a date, right? The next, you have to confirm the signature date is realistic before extending the incentive. That's why this order is so important. We create the closing plan, we confirm the closing date. Hey, is December 23rd a realistic timeline for you to make a final decision and execute the agreement? Yes. Okay, great. Then you roll out this time-based incentive, right? So you have to confirm the signature date is realistic before extending the incentive. And then the final thing, so important, you have to memorialize the incentive by email. You'll find that when you do this enough times, once you send that email grows legs and a bunch of other people look at it, especially if you're using HubSpot or any of these sales engagement tools that track the opens and clicks. But when you memorialize it, it makes the incentive real. And that's when the customer can reference it whenever they're having the internal meetings that you're not allowed to be a part of. The other thing is acknowledge that your champion, whenever they run into the chief legal officer or whoever at the water cooler, they say, hey, by the way, did you take a look at that agreement that's on your desk? We just need to get it signed by Monday. There's $2,000 that we're going to save if we just get it done by Monday, right? It does incentivize. And I know, and I'll get through some of the objections you might have in your mind, but this stuff works. I've seen it work on seven-figure deals, multi-year deals. I've seen it work on $2,000 or $5,000 deals. It works because all of the elements of the compelling event are there. It has an economic owner, direct response to a business pressure. It has an expiration date. And we did it in the right order because we did it after we confirmed the champ, created the closing plan, and we have a clear closing date on the calendar. So you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, if I look at my pipeline, there's probably a bunch of these deals that have a December close date, but there is no actual close date. Like, be honest with me. I can't even see any of you right now, but if I could see a show of hands, we'd probably get, 15 out of 15, however many people are here. How many of your deals have a December 31st close date? Because it just defaulted to the last day of the year or the last day of the month. That is the most ridiculous thing. There's no way that you're closing those deals on December 31st. So instead, go one by one, talk to your champion and say, what's a realistic timeline for us to make a decision? Oh, there's no way that we're going to have a final decision before the end of the year. Tell me more. Really? Okay, great. Well, then let's kick it out to January. And now we have a more realistic snapshot of how many actual opportunities we have in play between now and the end of the year. So important. Anything that has a December 31st close date, probably not a real deal. Or at the very least, it doesn't have a closing call set for New Year's Eve. I'd be willing to make that bet. I've just seen it enough times. And so be honest with yourself, be honest with the champion, and go create a real plan and know which deals are forecasted to close by asking your prospect, is it realistic for us to have a decision by December 23rd or December 30th for that matter, right? But just be clear and be direct about it. I wanted to give you some examples of what is not a time-based incentive. And this is what I meant earlier when I was talking about happy ears. And, we just get excited because we hear these buying triggers. These are all good things to hear. They just aren't compelling events. They want to get started ASAP. They want to make a decision by the end of the month. They have a project start date goal of January 15th. They said they would choose a solution in the fourth quarter. They chose our company. They love our company. My boss wants to have a solution in place. All those things are great, but they are not a compelling event. They're not a time-based incentive. And so That's on us. We have control. We can manufacture a compelling event. And I just gave you the tools on how to do it. Now, let's get into some of the things you're probably thinking. But Martin, won't discounts, this is a typo, won't discounts devalue our product? They will not devalue your product. If the best sales organizations in the world, Salesforce, Zoom Info, fill in the blank, like whatever enterprise sales, B2B sales, high performing sales organization you can think of, I guarantee you they use discounts to drive urgency on deals. And those discounts always have an expiration date. The other thing to keep in mind is that all of the prices, this is all made up. Your prices, they're not most likely not based in like tons of research and science. You're doing this equation on value versus price, and certainly you have to protect your margins. I'm not telling you you need to like give half off your product, but in most cases, your price is it's not arbitrary, but it is like an educated guess at best. And there is margin, especially if you're a SaaS product, there is margin. There's some meat on the bone there that you're willing to give up to gain certainty around when people are going to sign up. And if you don't want to give up the ARR, I understand. You know, at Levelset, we always used the onboarding fee, which was it was real money to us, but we were willing to waive part of it if we could get certainty around when a deal was going to close. I don't know if any of you have ever seen this movie. It's called The Goods. It's kind of funny. It paints sales in kind of a bad light. Anyway, the one of the common objections I get to this is, hey, Martin, offering a discount is going to make me look desperate. I'd argue that it probably does make you look desperate if you're doing it the wrong way. Here's the wrong way to do it. And this is the number one mistake, maybe, that I see. I probably should have mentioned this earlier. The number one mistake I see is reps behind on their number, just trying to get any deal over the line. They go to their manager and they say, oh, can I offer a discount? Then they go to the customer and they say, hey, listen, if you can sign up by Friday, we'll give you $2,000 off your implementation fee. Now, why doesn't that work? Well, first of all, it like reeks of desperation. It doesn't have any of the elements of what we know to be a real compelling event. We haven't confirmed that we have a champion. We don't have a closing plan. We haven't set a closing date. You'd be better off if you called that customer and said, hey, is it realistic that we could have a decision, a final decision by Friday? Yes. Can we put time on the calendar where we can have that final decision call? And in advance, I'll send you the agreement so that you can sign it at any point between now and Friday at 2 p.m. Right. And then you say, okay, based on everything we've talked about, we don't sell based on price, but we'd love to invest by way of $2,000 toward your implementation. Only thing we ask is you sign by 2 p.m. Friday when we have that call. At least we've shortcut we've shortened the process, but we're getting the order right. And so it only makes you look desperate if you're doing it in the wrong order and you're doing it as some last ditch effort to try to get them to buy. Your customer is not going to buy because you gave him a $2,000 discount. Your customer will buy because they believe in your product and they believe that your product will deliver a bunch of value. And the time-based incentive, all we're doing is just aligning on the timing of when they sign the agreement. It's important to remember that they're not buying because of the $2,000 discount or whatever your incentive is. They're buying because there's real value and they believe that it's going to impact the business. Now, the timing of when they buy, that can be influenced by this time-based incentive. And that's why we use it to drive urgency and certainty in the deal. And the last thing is, actually, there's two more. But Martin, a customer isn't going to sign up over a $2,000 discount. It's true, $2,000 is not going to make or break that business. It doesn't actually matter. But if the customer has already made the decision that they want to buy your product, remember, they're already recommending that the company buy your product, and they've gone through the work of setting up a compelling event, and they've said they're going to close on a specific date. Well, that $2,000 discount goes a long way in reminding them to bring it up in the meeting or at the water cooler, or just remind them, hey, like I got to get this deal done because we said that we were going to sign on this date and they're giving me an extra incentive to get it done by that date. When you frame it in that way, you start to understand why this compelling event works and why it's so effective at driving urgency and certainty around timeline. It's not going to make a difference for the business at $2,000, but it will be a constant reminder for your champion who has already decided that they want to buy your product. Okay. And the last thing I'll say is, Martin, they missed the closing call. Do I offer the discount again? Do I offer the TBI? What do you do when a time-based incentive slips? When a time-based incentive slips, when they miss the closing call or they say they can't make it or whatever happens, I let it slip once. Immediately after they miss, you call them, you reschedule, and on the reschedule, you reiterate verbally, we want to invest by way of $2,000, et cetera. You memorialize it again by email, and then the hope is that they show up on that second meeting. The stats aren't in your favor. Usually they won't. If they miss the first one, they probably will miss the second one. And if they miss the second one, the time-based incentive goes away. Really, you got to reset the deal. Hey, listen, we've set two closing calls. You haven't been able to make it. Usually what that tells me is that you're not serious about evaluating our product. I just want to make sure we're aligning our resources with your intention to move forward. How do you want to proceed from here? Oh, by the way, we have to go back through price. We have to go back through all of it. And again, this is about holding the champion accountable to what you agreed to and what that closing plan is. And so the expectation is that if you do it right, they do show up to the closing call and they move forward. Or they tell you, hey, look, this isn't, we're not going to buy. I mean, either one of those is acceptable. We don't mind no. We can work with no. What we hate is this slow maybe and this uncertainty and deals constantly getting kicked down the road. So that's it. Quick reminder, always communicate the economic incentive in terms of dollars, not percentages. Make it clear that the proposed price is an expiration date. The proposed price has an expiration date. Confirm the signature date, the closing call, right? That date is realistic before extending the time-based incentive. And then memorialize the incentive by email. Always memorialize it and send the email confirming exactly what you told them over the phone. And the last thing, the real last thing I'll leave you with is this is wonderful language to use today, this afternoon, when you're going through pipeline and then you decide which 4 or 5 deals have a chance to close. Call your champion and ask them this: what would have to be true in order to get started before the end of the year? What would have to be true? And now you're in a real conversation. Either they're going to say there's no chance, or they say, well, we need to get, Sally and Jerry and Tommy involved, or whatever it is. But we want to get to that conversation. And this is a very non-confrontational way to get into a productive conversation with your champion so that you can hopefully shake some more deals out before the end of the year. And don't forget about January. Always reach into January. Maybe there are some fast moving deals that you can pull into December. Anything's possible. And it doesn't hurt to ask. You can always call your champion and ask what would have to be true in order for us to get started before the end of the year. That's it. If you want the playbook, here it is, martinroth.com/4keys. Go take it and use it. And if you need help, reach out to me. This is what we do. We help mostly vertical SaaS sales teams accelerate through 20 million in revenue. And if you have questions, email me, martin@martinroth.com. Thank you so much for joining. We got you in under 30 minutes. And I guess I'll do this again next week. So stay tuned for whatever the topic is. Or if you have an idea for what you want me to talk about next week, tell me and I'll do it on that. Thanks, y'all.